Right, Amy?
Okay, so my name is Amy. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I am one of the program coordinators for our LGBTQ Center. So I serve specifically Ontario and Seneca counties. That doesn't mean I can't cross over into Wayne and Yates if it's something that I have like specialized education in. My areas of focus tend to be more around domestic violence, working with perpetrators of domestic violence. I also currently run our domestic violence accountability program for men. So if you're ever in a situation where there's interpersonal violence, domestic violence of any type, anything related to child protective services, anything like that, I'm typically who you would reach out to.
And I'm Mitch. I am Amy's co-coordinator. I use he, him, his pronouns. My primary counties are Wayne and Yates. However, like Amy said, we do kind of cross based on where our expertise lies. My areas of expertise tend to be around the world of transition for transgender, non-binary, and gender nonconforming youth and adults, assisting with the Dignity for All Students Act understanding, with Title IX as well. And then I have advanced knowledge of the name change process, which has just changed thanks to the newly signed Gender Recognition Act. And it's a huge victory that we're very excited about. So those are kind of the things that I'm able to help with. We always include on our intro slide these images of us side by side because it's really important to keep in mind that when we're talking about LGBTQ, which is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning, and of course the plus because there's so many other identities that fall in our community as well. When we're working with adults they were once youth, and we're working with a lot of youth now who know who they are from a very early age. And so I always joke that this face paint was quite on the nose for predicting my future as a child.
My big joke is just that you can tell it was the 90s because my turtleneck matches my wallpaper.
So today, what we're going to be going through is a pretty rapid fire condensed version of Safe Zone. So we do provide a 3-hour Safe Zone training. That's an option as well. It's always free to set up with specific organizations. But today we're just going to touch specifically on what makes the Safe Zone. Vocabulary, we're going to get into just the very surface level. We're going to talk about pronouns and how to incorporate them. We'll take a quick break before we jump into an activity around the coming out process. And then we will touch on what we can do to support people at all points of their journeys through the coming out process. And then at the very end, we'll share a couple of resources. We'll share our contact information again, and then wrap up.
So in talking about what makes a safe zone, we usually have like 5 ground rules that we try to operate under. And then of course, with an allowance for you to add any rules that might fit you. So the first one that we always talk about is to take the knowledge but leave the names. So we do talk about a lot of stuff, especially in our 3-hour training, we talk about a lot of different things. Some people will be giving examples and not think about the name coming out because they're just so used to talking about that person. So we want to make sure that we're taking all of the information that we're getting without taking out any identifying information. The caveat to that, and of course all of you understand this, is that we are mandated reporters. So if something does happen, something comes up that needs to be reported, we'll talk with you about that. But there are some things that we have to report if we hear them.
Our second ground rule is that in this space and any space we cultivate, we're wanting to assume goodwill. Everyone's coming to the table with different lived experiences and different levels of knowledge and comfortability around these topics. And so we always want to assume that when folks are speaking, making comments, or asking questions, it's out of goodwill. It's out of a genuine intent to learn and grow because we're here to learn and grow together. So that's a really important one that we set right out of the gate.
Our third one is one mic, one diva. So especially when we're on a virtual platform where it's really hard to read context clues, not all of us have our cameras on. We just ask that one person be speaking at a time. I am going to be running our chat. So if there are questions or things that come up, feel free to drop that in our chat. I will be keeping an eye on it the entire training. We just try to make sure that only one person is talking at a time, because with technological lag, and we just want to make sure that we're respecting everybody's space.
The fourth one is a big one for us, and that is explaining all acronyms and terms and correcting each other respectfully. We have our whole own world of language that continues to grow and change. But if certainly we don't explain something that we mention, please call us on it, because we want to make sure that we're saying all on the same page and able to understand. And then if someone does misspeak, a very common example is using the wrong pronouns to refer to somebody. We're going to correct that respectfully and intentionally without creating conflict. And we will, during this training, actually be covering how we do that in our day-to-day.
And our final rule is just to be present. So cameras on if possible. I know you all are probably eating right now, and I have a thing about eating on a camera, so feel free to leave your cameras off. Basically, we just want to make sure that you're taking care of you. So we do ask for you to be present and engaged. That being said, if you need to doodle or play with fidget toys or step away, please do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself and facilitate the best learning space for you.
Absolutely. So those are all the ones that we establish when we're creating a space. Is there anything else that we should establish for this space today that will help you feel safe to learn here? You can feel free to drop anything in the chat if you're thinking of it. All right, we'll go ahead and get started.
So we like to always start these trainings off by talking about the terms that you will probably hear the most. There are a lot of different terms that mean a lot of different things to everybody. Our big thing, our whole sting here is it's different for everyone. You're going to hear that over the next hour and a half all the time. So we just like to talk about the different terminology that you might hear. So the first word is sexual orientation, and this is the part of our identity related to whom we are sexually attracted. I'm going to skip one for a second and go down to romantic orientation. You'll see that those are broken up. There's a very specific reason for that. So this is the part of our identity related to whom we are romantically attracted, and this is also known as affectional orientation. We have two terms that we'll hit later, but the reason we break this up is because it's possible to have sexual attraction without romantic attraction and vice versa. And we changed the language to include this because before we had language, it was that you were normal or you were broken. And we don't want people to feel othered or broken because humanity is super complex and it's all on a spectrum and nobody is the same person. So that's why we break that up. Then we have our gender identity, and this is a part of a person's identity related, or that's about, their sense of self as male, female, neither or both. And this is different from gender expression, which is a part of a person's identity about expressing masculinity as femininity or femininity. And this can be influenced by society, culture, individual expectations, whatever it may be. So really, gender expression is just the outward way we express ourselves. So on the side here, you see our gender and sexuality map. You'll all be getting a copy of this. For our workers who work with kiddos or with people in crisis, I always recommend sort of shrinking it down like those forensic interview cards and laminating it. A lot of times when we're working with clients, they may have just started on their identity journey, and it's a lot to sort of figure out and take in. And so this allows you to talk about the different ways that identity is broken up and where you might fall, because it's not just one or the other, it can be anywhere on the spectrum. So on our map, we have the first one, which is sex assigned at birth. So this is you were born, the doctor said, yep, we've got a boy, or yep, we've got a girl, marked that M or that F on your birth certificate and sent you home. In between here, we have something called intersex, which we'll talk about later, but this is a person who may have sex characteristics of both male or female. This also can present as somebody with too much testosterone or a man with too much estrogen. So intersex we'll talk about later, but There is now an allowance for there to be this intersex gender marker, but that's very new. So then moving down, we've got our gender identity. So we've got, you can identify as male, as female, or somewhere in the middle at both, all, neither. And then expression is, you can express as more masculine, as more feminine, or more androgynous, which just means that true neutrality. And then we've got our sexual and romantic orientation. So you can be attracted to men, you can be attracted to women, you can be attracted to both men and women, all people regardless of identity, or nobody at all. So you'll see we've broken it up here. I'm the heart with the purple arrows. So I was assigned female at birth. I still identify as female. I express as predominantly feminine. There are some days where I'm a little bit more androgynous. And then I am attracted to women. So mine is fairly straight down this map.
So today we're kind of condensing, and so we're not going to be getting like super into the nitty gritty of different terms. We do have a vocab list of different terms that we use as a reference tool that you will still be getting as a resource. But just to kind of walk you through, these are on this map, the 5 components of someone's identity in regards to their attraction, their who they love, and their sense of self in regards to gender, their gender identity, which is who they are. So terms that kind of align with each thing, intersex, like Amy mentioned, just to touch on that, that is any variance in what is considered or expected in regards to sex assigned at birth. We know that there's all different ways of being that fall under that label as well. Gender identity, again, is that sense of self. There's male and female, but there are also people who don't identify anywhere on this spectrum. They feel completely outside of the binary of male and female. That's where you'd hear a term called non-binary. You also will see here my little moving truck for the star. The star is, of course, me. And I like to drive Amy nuts by drawing as big a star as I possibly can when we do this activity. On the truck, you see a pride flag, and that pride flag is the transgender pride flag. To be transgender just means that your gender identity moved somewhere different from where you were assigned at birth. So for my story, I packed up my gender truck and went all the way to the other side of the spectrum, but not everybody does that. So just like if I were moving from New York, I may stop in Ohio, I could go up to Canada. I'm not necessarily going all the way over to Oregon. It's the same with transition. Different people identify in different places. That's why you see all of these dots. So it's just really in simple terms, transgender just implies that movement, to really kind of sum that up succinctly. Gender expression is unique in that it's the only thing we can actually tell about somebody the first time we meet them without having a conversation. Even then, we can't take too much from how they're dressed, what their mannerisms are, what their career is, without relying on kind of our own stereotypes and our own bias to make our best guess as to how they might identify. The only way to really know is to ask. And then at the bottom, so sexual orientation and romantic orientation are separate. Someone who identifies as asexual doesn't experience sexual attraction. Someone who identifies as aromantic doesn't experience romantic attraction. And just like Amy said, those are fairly new terms that we've only just started to use to kind of get away from the idea that that's a broken person or a wrong way to be, when the truth is everyone experiences love differently. Sexual orientation is also where your LGB terms would fall under. So sexual orientations include lesbian, which is a woman attracted to other women, gay, which is a man attracted to other men, and bisexual, which is, again, that capacity to be attracted to both. Pansexual as well falls under sexual orientation. Pan just means all in its Latin root, so pan kind of supersedes the binary in that way. And these are just a very small handful of the terms that are out there. You're never expected to memorize them all. You're never expected to know them all. We get paid to do so, and we're always learning and growing, and that's awesome. And two, just like Amy said, here we go. It's different for everyone. Two different people who use the same term to describe their experience, it may mean different things to both of them. And so it's always really important to prioritize the individual and figure out what best fits their sense of self and their experience in conversations.
So really quickly, before we talk about pronouns, I do want to put in a plug because a lot of you are going to be working with people who might tell you that they're in a polyamorous relationship or tell you in some way that they identify as LGBTQ, and that's fantastic. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But one of the terms we didn't go over that we typically go over is what it means to be polyamorous. So polyamorous means that you're in a relationship with more than one person at a time, but it depends on full consent and full knowledge of everybody involved. The reason I call this term out specifically is not because being polyamorous is bad or dangerous, but it's a really good indicator that you need to screen a little bit harder for domestic violence. Polyamory can be used as a form of domestic violence, especially if, if Mitch and I are in a polyamorous relationship, but Mitch tells me I'm not allowed to see other people, only he's allowed to see other people. That's a form of domestic violence because there's not full knowledge, full consent. It also can look like a client telling you that they got into a relationship with somebody and they thought it was going to be monogamous. But then as soon as they started dating this person, they said, oh, well, also, just so you know, I'm polyamorous, and this is what this means. I know you're not comfortable about it, but I don't care. So polyamory is just a really important time for you to do a little bit more screening. Just, oh, what does that look like for you? What does day-to-day in your relationship look like? What do fights look like? You just want to do a little bit more screening because it can be used as a form of domestic violence. And we've all learned what domestic violence looks like through a very heteronormative lens, so through a very male and female relationship lens. So a lot of people in the LGBTQ community don't know what to look for when it comes to domestic violence. A lot of domestic violence between two women tends to be more emotional, mental, financial. And then violence between two men tends to look more aggressive. It's more outward. So a lot of people don't know how to screen or even know what to look for when they're in a relationship themselves. So I just like to talk a little bit about that. I told you that I'm the DV person here. So if you ever have any more questions or you want more information, you can always feel free to reach out to me. So I will hop back off of my soapbox now. And I will start talking a little bit about pronouns. So when we introduced ourselves, you heard us say, hi, this is my name. I use these pronouns. Pronouns tends to be where people get a little bit stuck. So we're going to break it down for you. So a pronoun is what we use to refer to somebody in place of constant use of their name. It's really uncomfortable when you say, oh, Mitch and I went to the movies and Mitch and I ate a ton of popcorn because Mitch loves popcorn. And then Mitch told me this joke and it made me laugh because Mitch is so funny. Right? Like that's really weird and really clunky. We don't use people's names all the time. It would be Mitch and I went to the movies and he and I decimated a thing of popcorn because he loves popcorn. Right? That's way more comfortable. Pronouns are also very deeply tied to personal identity, and it's not something we should just guess. So Mitch and I met for the first time over a bowl of fruit salad at our all staff, and Mitch did not come up to me and say, hey, Heather, it's nice to meet you, Jane. I'm so excited to work with you, Holly, until I said, my name is Amy. He said, hey, I'm Mitch. And I said, hey, I'm Amy, right? We didn't guess each other's names. We introduced ourselves. So we shouldn't be guessing them, but it's something that we've been raised to do. The other thing to know is that not everybody's going to feel comfortable sharing their pronouns, and that's okay. Pronouns, again, are very personal. A lot of people might be trying pronouns on for the first time. They might be in situations where they're not out at work, but they're out at home. So we want to make sure that we're setting the space to be able to have the discussion about pronouns. This is something that we should ask for one-on-one unless we're in a situation where all of us are sharing. So at our team meetings, we all go around, or all staff, excuse me, we all go around and we say, this is my name, these are my pronouns, this is my job. And we just go around the pike. We set that up so that people don't have to say their pronouns, but know that they're safe to do so and they won't be singled out. Otherwise, we do recommend like asking somebody on a one-on-one basis.
A trick that we also like to use that works really well in those group introductions is incorporating a silly question after name and pronouns, especially with youth. This really helps a lot because, again, it's about providing the opportunity. Not everyone's going to take it, and that's fine. But asking them, so if you were a kitchen utensil, what would you be? Or if you could have any wild animal as a pet, what wild animal would you want? Things like that really get people kind of more focused on that than really thinking too hard into their pronoun and kind of going through those feelings at that time. So examples of pronouns are, of course, she, her, hers, he, him, his. They, them, and theirs as a gender neutral pronoun is becoming much more commonly used, and it does require practice to get used to using it, and that's okay. The other thing that you might encounter is someone who only wants to be referred to by their name, someone who only wants to be referred to without any pronouns whatsoever, which is a little bit of a fun linguistic dance. And then there are also other sets of pronouns that fit different people's experiences best. The thing is that this is so personal, and it's something that shows respect when we refer to people the way they want to be referred to. So resources that we really highly recommend are practicewithpronouns.com, which is a website where you can actually plug in like a name or a nickname and a set of pronouns. What the website then will do is load all of those into a piece of literature. I specifically, when my college roommate came out to me as non-binary and wanting to use they, them pronouns, I specifically remember always doing the Alice in Wonderland, but changing it to my roommate in Wonderland, and would practice reading the sentences out loud to myself, by myself, to get used to saying it. And that is what really helped me, because I grew up in a home with two parents with master's degrees in English. And so using they to refer to a single person, I can certainly understand needing to adjust to that. So that's a tremendous resource for practicing. Also, there is another site called the Pronoun Dressing Room that we link down there, specifically for people who are looking to try on different pronouns and kind of see how they feel. We provide an opportunity at every single one of our support group meetings through our program. Every week, we re-ask what people want to be called in regards to both name and pronouns, so that we're intentionally creating a safe space for youth and adults to try on different things and see what fits best. Especially though, when you're working with youth, it's really important to clarify where they want to be referred to this way. So clarifying if a youth wants to be called a different name or set of pronouns in schools, is this okay to put on your report card? What do I need to do when I'm talking to your parents? Like, is this something that you've shared with all of your teachers? Or is it just in my classroom? Things like that are really important to clarify, because especially in regards to the family thing, the last thing you want to do is accidentally out a youth to their family, which is outing means letting them know that there's something different than cisgender, identifying with the gender assigned at birth, or heterosexual, which is wanting to be in relationships with people of the opposite assigned sex, going on with their kid when the kiddo is not ready to share that at home, because not every home environment is a safe environment. So just really being mindful about having those conversations with youth specifically about where and when they want to be referred to that way. this is a big topic, and we've spent like maybe 6 minutes on it, so it's not going to be a perfect understanding. But before we move on, are there any specific questions anyone has about pronouns that we can address right now?
So really quickly, before we do take questions, we promised you that we were going to tell you how to course correct gently. So I would like to talk just a couple minutes about this, and also to let you know that Mitch and I have a YouTube channel where we break down pronouns for like 30 minutes. So we'll make sure that that gets sent out to you. When we're talking about pronouns, it's really easy to get caught up. It's really easy to get stuck, misstep, and then we're sort of left floundering, right? When we know we've hurt somebody that matters to us, our typical go-to tends to be that we fall over ourselves apologizing, right? I'm so sorry. I know that you use he, him, his pronouns. I'm so sorry. I'm really working on it. I'll be better. I swear, right? It sounds fine to be like, oh my gosh, I recognize this and I'm really sorry. But what we're doing when we fall over ourselves apologizing is we're making this person whose feelings or whose identity we've just hurt make us feel better. And we don't want to do that, right? We've hurt them. We don't want them to make us feel better. So what we typically encourage is a couple of different things, right? So if you misstep and mispronouns or misgender somebody, what you can do is course correct in that moment and keep moving on. So if I'm talking about Mitch and I say she, I could say, yeah, and he and I did this thing together, right? I've course corrected it. I have moved on. I acknowledged that I messed up. Without acknowledging that I messed up, I made it better and I kept talking, right? That means that they know that I know I messed up. And I'm continuing forward because I've corrected myself. I'm aware that this is a change. The other thing that we can do is if we hear somebody else misgendering someone, we can step in a couple of different ways, right? So if we're not comfortable stepping in that moment, we can pull that person aside later and say, hey, this person really uses these pronouns. I just wanted to let you know, right? Or what we can do is if we're having a conversation with somebody, we can correct them then and there. So if I'm talking with my supervisor and she says, can you believe Mitch watched Cinderella again this weekend? She's such a Disney nerd. I could say, oh, I can believe he watched it. He loves Disney. Cinderella is his favorite princess, right? I have now reiterated his pronouns a couple of times without even saying, excuse me, you know that Mitch uses he, his, him's pronouns, right? I haven't made her feel bad. I haven't even said, hey, you messed up. I just said, oh, I can believe that he watched it. He loves it, right? So it's super easy to correct once you get used to it. It is a big shift. We know that people are going to misstep, and that's okay. We allow that grace. And the people we're talking with also know that it's a big shift for people. So there is that grace allowance. We just want to make sure that we're being cognizant of it and doing it as respectfully as possible when we have misstepped or when other people misstep. A really good way to sort of normalize the discussion of pronouns is to put your pronouns on your name badge, put it in your email signature. I think most of the people at our agency have pronouns in our email signature, and I've had a lot of conversations with people about that just because they've been like, hey, what does this mean? There are a lot of different ways to sort of plant that seed. Again, it can be really difficult to have these conversations, and we get that. If there's ever questions or concerns, you can always come to us. The one other example we use for they, them pronouns is that it actually has existed as a singular pronoun for hundreds and hundreds of years, but we've been trained in modern time that it's plural. A good way to remember they, them pronouns is if you walk into a conference room and you say, oh no, somebody left their umbrella. I hope they get it back, right? We don't know who left their umbrella. So we're just using the neutral because unless I know that it's the Mary Poppins umbrella, I'm not going to be like, oh, Mitch left his umbrella. I'm going to say, oh no, somebody left their generic golf umbrella. I hope they get it back, right? So there's a lot of different ways we can retrain ourselves. It's very hard. Society does not make it easier to retrain and to learn. That's why these resources are fantastic. So now, if there are any questions or concerns, feel free to send them our way. Otherwise, we'll just keep going.
Can I unmute and ask? Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
So I actually This is a good question. I think that people may not think is going to happen. So I have found that sometimes parents with pronouns, and still going back to pronouns, they don't want to use the pronoun that their youth identifies with because it's not their born pronoun. How would you handle that? I think it's easier with calling out other providers or things like that, but parents, it's a little bit of a more of a touchy subject.
Well, so certainly like with parents specifically, they've known this kiddo for this kiddo's entire existence by one set of pronouns, and the switch does take time. I think that as an educator, just, providing the space to be willing to have a conversation around that with the kiddo and make sure that the kiddo is feeling supported, because with parents, like if they're going through their journey of coming to terms with it, we can't always change people's minds, unfortunately, even when we really, really want to. But what we can do, what is in our circle of control, is cultivating an environment where the youth is able to be respected when they are in the setting where we interact. Certainly, we do have a group for parents and family members that we provide twice a month that is called Square One, because we really want people to feel like they can come from wherever they're at and kind of find this understanding. We also definitely recommend just maintaining open communication with families around this topic, and really explaining that this is what the youth feels safest being referred to by, but it is really delicate. So I would say, and Amy, please weigh in, I would say the most important thing is to give the youth a soft place to land with you.
I would agree. It also depends on the relationship you have with parents. So sometimes there's the opportunity to have a conversation with a parent who might come in really angry and, you did this to my child, or why are you allowing this? And then that's a really good opportunity to just sort of maintain that composure and explain what it means, and sort of talk a little bit about why it's so upsetting to that parent. Because if you can maintain that composure and you have the relationship with a parent where you can say, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about like what has you so upset. I know this is really hard. It's a huge shift. And then sort of, if you can sort of bring it back to, we're validating your kiddo because we know that validating your kiddo means that your child has a better chance of success, that your child feels happier and healthier. And if you've been struggling with your relationship with your child, this might be a good way to show that you're here for them. So again, that is incredibly dependent on the relationship you have with parents. Some parents, I would never encourage you to have that conversation, and some are really able to hear it once you sit down and say, this is suicide prevention. Sometimes it has to be put in the terms of, this is suicide prevention. So it's difficult because parents have such high feelings about their kids, which is great. We want parents to be that invested in their kids, right? But sometimes we need to sort of reframe the investment in our child's life. And so I think between Mitch's suggestions and then sort of just acknowledging that it's difficult and explaining why or how we can move to this together, or what goals we can set together to learn more about our kids. Those are a couple of ways that we can sort of, I'm a really big fan of planting seeds. We go in saying, we're not here to change your mind. Here's the information. You do with it what you will. I always tell my clients that it's a choose your own adventure situation with me, where you've got option A or B, and whichever one you choose, that's the path we're going to take. And if we have to regress, we'll regress. So giving the autonomy to the parents while also planting those seeds is usually my go-to.
Thank you very much.
I have a question real quick. And I might have missed this because I stepped away to use the bathroom, so I apologize if you did touch on this. But it's about the pronouns. How do you go about if you do have a kid that you're working with that has like, you know, gone all their life as like she, her, and is now starting to identify as he, his, but is not ready to come out with that like yet. So how do you kind of have a conversation with them about what places they're comfortable with you calling them he, his versus?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So that is a really perfect opportunity to sit down and have a one-on-one and, you know, create like a conversation around where is it safe for me to use these. Like questions I always recommend asking are, how do you want me to be communicating with home? And then, is this something that you're sharing in every class, or is this just in my classroom? And then two, a big one, especially in the school setting, is having a conversation around peers, because peers will sometimes share things for LGBTQ students when the student hasn't necessarily wanted things to get spread the way they get spread in schools. I'm sure we're all familiar with this happening. So just saying like, what would you like me to do? How can I support you as your peers might be finding this out, and this might be more of a conversation in the school setting, and really setting up a game plan for addressing that when it comes. But yeah, definitely having a one-on-one conversation to figure out where that student wants to be referred to by that new set of pronouns is the best practice I can recommend. Great question.
Thank you.
All right, so let's take let me check my time. Let's take a 4-minute break, and then we will do a quick activity. You will need a piece of paper and a writing utensil for our next activity. So bring that back with you, but we will see you in 4 minutes at 45. Time flies. All right, so for this next activity, as we're coming back, everyone is going to draw a 5-pointed star. You want it to be big enough that you can write at least next to, if not inside, each of the 5 points. And then you are going to choose a color to designate your star. So the 4 colors that we use for this activity are blue, orange, red, and purple. So again, you're going to draw a 5-pointed star that you can write in or next to, and then decide whether you want to color it in or just note that it is blue, orange, red, or purple.
So in the star, you want to put your name right in the middle, and then I will give you instructions on what goes in each point. So choose any side of the star to begin with. And the first point, you're going to choose a friend who's very close to you. So this is someone you care about. This is someone you go to all the time. Write their name on the point of the star that you choose to start with.
Should I do that in a specific color, or does it not matter?
Nope, only the color of the star matters.
Okay.
So if you just keep note somewhere that you either have a blue, orange, red, or purple star, that's the only thing that matters for color.
Oh, so it's like the whole star is blue.
The whole
It's not.
star is.
Oh
this
gosh,
color.
I am getting all my art supplies around, like trying to figure out how to make a star multiple colors.
Well, I appreciate your commitment. Okay, so on the second point of the star, choose a family member, someone you've turned to in times of need. Always go to this person for advice, someone who's made a huge impact on your life. Write this family member on the next point of your star. Okay, on the third point, think of a community that you belong to. So this could be a religious community, your neighborhood, a fraternity or sorority, a group of friends. Mitch is laughing because I always choose my trivia team. Whatever community you most belong to, write this group or this, whatever it is, on the next point of your star. On the fourth point of the star, write what job you would most like to have. We're not sharing this with your supervisor, so if it is not your current job, that is okay. Whatever career aspiration is. So maybe you want to be a full-time novelist, maybe you want to be an actor, maybe you want to be retired, lounging on your porch, drinking coffee all day long, which is my dream. Whatever it is, feel free to write this on your star. And then the last point are some of your hopes and dreams. So maybe you want to be a millionaire, maybe you want a perfect family, whatever some of your biggest aspirations are, right on this point, and then we will get going with the activity. Okay, so the point of this activity is to put yourself in the shoes of somebody coming out for the first time. So wear that lens as we go through this. So you've decided that it will be easiest to tell your friends first. Since they've always been there for you in the past, you feel that they need to know. If you have a blue star, your friend has no problem with it. They've suspected for some time now, and they thank you for being honest with them. So luckily, they act no different towards you, and they accept you for who you are. If you have an orange or a purple star, your friends are a little bit hesitant at first. They're a little bit irritated that you waited so long to tell them, but you're confident that with a little bit of time, they'll understand that being LGBTQ is just a part of who you are. So you just need to give them some time. Please either fold back the side of your star or dotted line to indicate that it's still there, but inaccessible right now. Inaccessible, excuse me. If you have a red star, you are met with anger and disgust. This friend who has been by your side in the past tells you that being LGBTQ is wrong and that they cannot associate with somebody like that. If you have a red star, please tear off this side or cross it off. You are now part of more than 1/3 of LGBTQ youth who report losing a close friend when they come out. So with most of you having such good luck with your friends, you decided that your family probably deserves to know. You turn to your closest family member first so that it'll be a little bit easier. If you have a blue star, you're embraced by this family member. They're proud that you have decided to come out, and they let you know that they will always be there for you. If you have an orange or a red star, your family rejects the thought of being related to an LGBTQ person. Similarly to some of your friends, they are disgusted, and some of you are even thrown out of your house or disowned. If you have an orange or a red star, please tear the side of your star off or cross this side off. You are now one of the estimated 1.6 million homeless American youth, 20 to 40% of whom identify as LGBTQ. And some of these statistics are a little bit older, so we know that it's a little bit higher now. If you have a purple star, the conversation does not go exactly how you had planned. Several questions are asked as to how this could have happened, but after some discussion, this person who's close to you seems a little bit more at ease with it. So fold this side of your star back or dotted line this point of your star. They will be an ally, but only with some time. Having told your family and friends, the wheels have started to turn, and soon members of your community become aware of your orientation or identity. If you have an orange star, you are met with a mixed response. Some accept you and some don't know what to think. You remain a part of the community and with time will fit in as you once did. If you have an orange star, please fold back or dotted line this side. If you have a blue or purple star, your sexual orientation is accepted by your community. They continue to embrace you like anybody else, and together you celebrate the growing diversity in your community. If you have a red star, your community reacts with hatred. They tell you that someone like you doesn't belong in their community. Those who had supported you in your times of need no longer speak to you or acknowledge you. If you have a red star, tear this side off and drop it to the ground or cross it off completely. You do not have to drop it to the ground. That's an instruction in here that I always accidentally read at least once. You've heard that rumors have started circulating at work regarding your sexual orientation and or gender identity. In the past, you made it a point to confront these rumors as soon as they began, but now you're not sure if that will do more harm than good. If you have a blue star, your coworkers begin to approach you and let you know that they've heard the rumors, but they don't care. They'll support you anyway. Your supervisors and boss react the same way, letting you know that you do excellent work and that's all that matters. If you have a red or an orange star, you continue to work as though nothing is happening, ignoring the rumors that have spread throughout your workplace. One day, you arrive at work to find your office has been packed up. You are called into your boss's office and she explains that you are being fired. When you ask why, she tells you that lately your work has been less than satisfactory and she's had to make some cutbacks in your area. If you have a red or an orange star, please tear this side off or cross this side off. If you have a purple star, your workplace has become quite interesting. Everybody seems to think that you're LGBTQ, even though you haven't mentioned it to anybody or confirmed any of the rumors. Some people speak to you less, but the environment has not changed too drastically. If you have a purple star, please fold this side or dotted line this side. Now your future lies ahead of you as an LGBTQ young adult. For some of you, your hopes, dreams, and wishes for the perfect family, or the perfect life, are all that remain. If you have a red star, you fall into despair. You have been met with rejection after rejection, and you find it impossible to accomplish your lifelong goals. If you have a purple, blue, or orange star, these hopes and dreams are what keep you going. Most of you have been met with some form of rejection since the beginning your coming out process, but you've managed to reach out for support. With the help of at least one supportive person or entity in your life, you are able to find healthy ways of coping through the difficult changes in your life. You ultimately continue to live a happy and healthy life, and your hopes and dreams become a reality. How are our stars looking? You can type it in the chat if you want to. You don't have to unmute yourselves. Did anybody have a red star? Okay, so Sarah had a red star. We had a blue star. Tina had a red star. Okay, how are we feeling about our stars? Purple's not too bad, 1 solid point, feel alone. Yeah, so some of us are feeling good and supported, some of us are not feeling so good. The color red, Lisa, was not great. So basically you lost most aspects of your life when coming out. Okay, so we got some mixed feelings.
So a lot of times when we do this activity, folks are kind of surprised by the friends, the family members, and their workplace environments as well, reacting the way that they do in the structure of this activity, which is an important reminder that for almost anyone going through the coming out process, there is that not knowing, no matter how sure someone might be and what reaction they're going to get from a certain person. You don't know until you're in the moment finding out.
There are a lot of times that people have said, like, oh, well, I chose this person because I thought that it would be, because they were the one person I didn't think would reject me. That's not happening. And then we have to say, we hope it doesn't happen, but there are some things that we think we know, and then we go to sort of confirm that, and we get the opposite of what we were hoping to confirm. Jennifer says, it makes you realize how the reactions of others can change the trajectory of someone's life. That's exactly it. So when we were talking about that at the very end, how it says that having just one person in your life can make or break that trajectory, that is a true and hard statistic, that one person in your life showing you support, whether it be a family member, a teacher, a CPS worker. We went to a training where a foster kiddo said that the reason they felt safe working with their foster care worker was because their foster care worker had their pronouns in their signature. Right. So it's these tiny shows of support here and there, and it's our ability to step up and be an ally to our clients that really continues our clients on the trajectory we want them to be on, and the trajectory they want to be on. But it's really important to be able to assess where we are and where they are, because for a lot of our clients, especially if they're youth, they might not be in healthy, affirming homes. And then where does that leave us, right? Sometimes, it tends to be sort of a pattern, especially in the LGBTQ community, that art teachers, drama teachers, and English teachers tend to be the huge forces of positivity in LGBTQ youth's lives. And so a lot of people will be like, oh my gosh, my English teacher was amazing for me too. And so sometimes it's not the people we would expect that keep that kiddo on their trajectory or our client on their trajectory. And so that's why we like to talk about that, especially with service providers, because you might be the only face keeping them going.
And that resiliency is so important and very powerful in this community. Also, it's really important for LGBTQ people to, at the very least, have access to their community through programs like ours, through seeing Pride stuff in Target makes them feel less alone, because it's a visible sign that there's someone else out there who gets it. And especially for youth in unaffirming environments, I can't tell you how many youth I have that literally count down till their 18th birthday, and no matter what it takes, they get out and get on their own path. And so always really, it can't be said enough how much that one person, like when we were talking earlier about pronouns and cultivating a safe environment, at least in that one specific classroom for that child, is the single most important thing. For me, it was my Spanish teacher, Amy. So it can be anybody is the important clarification. But yeah, like especially for youth where school may be their only outside activity from their home, having that safe place and seeing those visible signs of being welcome and being supported is really crucial. That's why the rainbow flag matters. That's why sharing our pronouns matters, because even if you don't get a chance to have a conversation with that specific youth, they see that and they know that when or if they need to come to somebody for help, they can come to you. So it's very, very important. Specifically talking about the coming out process, there is a model of coming out that tends to be kind of the steps that any LGBTQ person goes through in their coming out process. So up on the screen right now, what you see there are 6 steps here, and the rainbow order is not the actual order. I tricked you. Your goal is to put these 6 steps in the order in the chat, or you can say them out loud that you think this process might go in. So take a look, and then we will show you the connection and talk through that model. So just in case you can't see on the screen, those 6 steps are tolerance, pride, synthesis, comparison, confusion, and acceptance. So far, Amber is the closest. All right, we'll go ahead and talk through this order. Really good guesses. I always applaud folks when, we're trying to get them in the right order. Oh, Sarah, you got it. Perfect. Yes. So the first step in the coming out process is that confusion stage. It's maybe I don't feel like everybody else does when they see Chris Hemsworth. Maybe that's not something that's clicking in my brain. I'm not really sure what's going on. Or, I've always worn dresses, but it's starting to not feel right to me, and I'm not really sure what the deal is with that. It's something's going on, not really sure, but starting to feel a little bit different from peers, from what they see represented in mainstream society and media. And then the second stage then is comparison. In the comparison stage, you're looking not just to, does anyone else feel this way? Is there anyone else around me who is different, who acts differently? It's also, how are they treated? So if you're trying to figure out if it would be safe, or, what community exists in your area, really that comparison stage. This is also where you see, oh, I really look up to this person who is out and proud, and this person has a shaved head, so I'm going to shave my head, or I'm going to go vegan because a lot of people are going vegan. It's that trying to really fit into a stereotype of what they see represented oftentimes. Following that comparison, we get into the tolerance stage. Amy has a fantastic way of talking about this stage, where it's just like when you have a cold, it's your reality, it's something that you have to deal with, but you don't want it. You're just tolerating it. It's so you're figuring out, okay, maybe I'm attracted to the same gender, maybe I am a different gender. I'm not going to talk about this. I'm not going to be kind to myself about this because I really don't like this, but I'm going to just put up with it. This is where we have our glowing red arrow. So that is where Amy and I talk about the danger zone. So when someone is in that tolerance stage between tolerance and acceptance, that's where things like risky behavior, substance abuse, really any kind of harmful negative behavior starts to kind of skyrocket. Self-harm and suicide attempts are very, very common at this stage because this person hasn't felt positively about themselves. They're looking at themselves through this lens, but they're just tolerating it and they don't know what to expect. They may be assuming that the worst is going to happen if they do come out. And so why not just make it happen and become a self-fulfilling prophecy? There's a lot of that as well. And then two, for a lot of LGBTQ people in most communities, the only places that are deliberately inclusive tend to be bars. So it's very common for substance abuse to start because we've obtained a fake ID just to go to a space to maybe be with other people who are like us. Maybe we've met other people who are like us, who are using drugs, who are smoking, and we're trying to fit in, we're trying to feel safe. And so we're picking up those things. So that place, like that state of being, we really try to highlight, because a lot of people unfortunately don't make it past that danger zone. Some people live their whole lives just in the tolerance stage. And so it's really important, especially when you're working with people who do experience things like substance abuse, self-harm, suicidal ideation, to keep this in mind. Moving through that danger zone, that's where we talk about that really important one person or that one positive role model. Those are things that can really build a bridge to get across to the next stage, which is acceptance. Maybe we're still not super thrilled, but hey, this is who I am. There's going to be some people who maybe won't want to speak to me anymore, but also there's a community that's waiting for me, and there's people who will celebrate who I am. And this isn't maybe what I planned for my life, but I'm going to be okay. Like that's where we are when we're hitting that acceptance stage. From there is the pride stage next, which is the one that everyone knows, because that's the one that everyone sees. This is where we're maybe baking a cake to come out to certain people. We're wearing a pride flag as a cape. I definitely had this stage big in high school, rainbow shoelaces, the whole 9 yards, because I'm not going to be afraid anymore. This is who I am. I'm proud that this is who I am. And I really want to celebrate it, and I want to celebrate it out loud. It can be the only thing that a person who's in this stage wants to talk about. They can be specifically trying to only be around other people who are LGBTQ, but definitely, no matter how obnoxious a pride stage may feel to anybody at any given time, thinking about all that a person has to overcome to be able to get to that point, to be that excited and to be that covered in rainbows, is really key to understanding why it matters so much. We celebrate Pride every year because our community has been marginalized and set back so many times, and we keep coming back and we keep finding each other and caring for one another and working for better. So it's very significant to celebrate that pride and that pride stage. Finally, the final stage of coming out is synthesis. So for me, I'm a transgender man. I am also a bisexual man, but I am a dog dad. My background is art and design. Amy calls me out every time we do this training for being a Disney adult. I really like to garden. It's a facet of who you are, but there's so many other pieces that make us complete whole people. But in that synthesis stage, it just kind of becomes a part of who you are and is no longer a burden or the only thing that an individual focuses on. This process can be cyclical. Some people, like I mentioned with the tolerance stage, some people stay in certain stages for a really long time. When some people go through this multiple times before arriving at who they really know themselves to be, because there is a part of figuring out who you are that can be that journey, that is that process of discovery. But all in all, these are the steps. These are how it tends to go. There is no set timeline for anyone though, and coming out is not a one-time thing. Once you've come out once, you're coming out for the rest of your life. Like when you're meeting a new partner, when you are creating friendships, when you're trying to get a new job, like making that decision, what do I want to share, where do I want to share it? So yeah, Amy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so when we talk about the process being different for every single person, and we don't have time for me to give my whole spiel about this, but usually I tell my story because we talk about how it doesn't always go in this order. Sometimes you skip things. I just hopped right over pride and into synthesis because I went to a very, very Catholic college. And the short of it is that I can still currently today lose my degree if my college finds out that I'm living an openly queer life, because I'm not protected by Title IX under our laws because it was a private Catholic college. So I didn't have the option to be pride in the pride stage. I had to just synthesize and keep moving forward. So pride is a huge and crucial point for a lot of people. It's also okay if we as bystanders are tired by it or exhausted by it, as long as we're not taking that away from our clients, right? So pride is a huge facet of what I do. It's also very tiring for me because I didn't really get the option to have the pride stage. And by the time I could have the pride stage, I was already synthesized. So it didn't matter, right? And so it's okay to struggle with our clients when they're going through these stages, especially the pride stage tends to be really exhausting for a lot of different reasons. But the crucial thing to remember is that we overcame a lot to get there. I'm one of the anomalies. I had a great family, super supportive. I came out to them because I knew that they would be a safe space for me to land if my college kicked me out. I am a minority in that kind of experience. So a lot of people, it is life or death for a lot of LGBTQ people. So it's okay to be tired by pride as long as we're validating our clients who are in the pride stage. Because yes, it might be like, why does everything have to be about this? But the reason everything is about this is because I went through all of that to get to this. Right. And so we want to make sure that we're continuing to build our clients up, even if we're tired. It's the same thing as when, we're responding to a case and we've had this client 4 times before and we're like, oh, why are we back here? We're back here because they're not ready yet or because they still need our support. Right. And it can be really easy to fall into this trap of like, I just closed my case with you. Why am I open again? We're open again because we still need to give you support. We're in this pride stage because we're so excited we overcame all of this stuff. And I still need you to show me that you love me. So when we're talking about the coming out stage, or the coming out model, we like to talk especially about how to respond when youth or adults come out to you. So we've just seen that it can be really difficult for people to come out, right? We know that for a lot of people, it is, what am I going to lose? What am I giving up to maintain my authenticity? And even for me, in a happy and supportive family, I still knew that there was a really good chance I was going to lose some people. I'm very, very close with my sister. She's my best friend. At the time, she was talking about being a nun. So I knew that there was a real hot chance I was going to lose my sister forever. I didn't, luckily, but I spent most of the summer before coming out to my family just crying, right? And I knew I had a good family. So it's a really vulnerable time and we need to anticipate those feelings. We need to offer support and be honest and sincere when people come out to us, because if they're coming out to us, we've been identified as a safe person for them. So we have the responsibility to show them that that was not misplaced trust. We need to affirm, validate, show acceptance for them. Start where they are. That's the most crucial thing I think anybody can do, is start on their level. Because if we're at a LGBTQ 401 knowledge level and they're at a 101, we don't want to force them to a 401. We want to humble ourselves and come down to where they are so that they don't feel like they're missing out or they're doing it wrong, anything like that. We also want to avoid labeling. it's really comfortable for humans to put people into compartmentalized boxes for our own understanding, which is why there's a million different terms that exist. But we don't want to put those labels and those terms on people. We want to follow what they say. We want to reflect their reality back to them, because people will tell us who they are when they know that they can. The other thing is to understand that it might change. That gender and sexuality map that we talked about at the very beginning is a great tool, especially when somebody's coming out for the first time. I had a client who had just decided that they wanted to try on this kind of pronoun and this name, and they weren't really sure what it meant or what it looked like. So we went over the map and they were like, oh my gosh, this makes so much more sense. I want to be at this dot over here, but I express over on this dot, right? So it's okay if people try on pronouns and then realize that's not the pronoun for them and try on a different pronoun or try on a different name. We want to follow their lead and reflect their reality back to them. We also want to make sure that we're not perpetuating myths and stereotypes. So a lot of the myths and stereotypes that exist are kind of funny, sort of rooted in truth, but not always. But there are also a lot of really harmful myths and stereotypes. We don't want to assume that somebody's LGBTQ because they've been abused or because they're troubled by their situation. We don't want to assume that issues are directly stemming from being LGBTQ, because issues might be stemming from the fact that we're queer and we're being abused by mom and dad at home, right? I'm not being abused necessarily because I'm queer, but I'm also being abused at home. And I don't want to focus on being queer. I want to focus on the abuse that's happening. So we don't want to assume that all of our issues are stemming from the fact that we're LGBTQ. The other most important thing, I think, is to be able to provide supports to youth and to families. So for the Finger Lakes region, it's me and Mitch for the LGBTQ resources. We're the only one that exists right now between Albany and Buffalo. Syracuse is open per diem. Rochester is temporarily disbanded. So it's me and Mitch for our counties. And we have 4 support groups. We have You Are Not Alone, which is for youth. It meets every Monday at 4. We have 2 groups for adults. So we've got our Trans and Gender Expansive Coalition that's every first and third Thursday of the month. And then we have Haven, which is for all LGBTQ adults, and that's the second and fourth Thursday of every month. And we also have a group called Square One, and that's for parents and families of LGBTQ people who maybe don't want to emotionally exploit their family members, but want to learn how to be a better ally, or are having a struggle and they don't know how to talk with anybody else about it. So they can come to us and to our group and talk about other people who are going through similar issues. So we just want to make sure we know all of the supports and programming that exists in the community.
Yeah, so really this has been kind of a whirlwind look at the coming out process at the LGBTQ community. We so appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. I know that June is nuts at the end of the school year as well. So on this last slide, we have a QR code for our evaluation for this training. We will be sending out a PDF copy of our evaluation as well. And if you have not already, dropped your name and where you're joining us from in the chat so that we can get you those certificates of having attended this mini safe zone, please do that as well. We will also be sending you flyers for all of that current programming that Amy mentioned, our vocabulary guide. We have a guide to jump starting a GSA and a reading list that we continually update with new resources. Amy will be dropping our contact information in the chat as well. And we will hang out and answer some questions here for a couple more minutes, but thank you so much for joining us.
Lisa, can you explain a little bit more about your question? Feel free to unmute yourself too if it's easier to speak than type.
you for extending the invitation to a variety of providers. As an assistant principal in a middle school, this is a topic that probably every day we're working with our youths on. And I can't tell you, Mitch and Amy, your presentation and your thoughts and how you present this information is very comforting and very comfortable. So I want to thank you for that, and hopefully as we continue supporting our youth and our parents, we can extend some support from you for us as educators. So I really do appreciate it. It's rare that I attend a P&D or training that's so well presented. So thank you. I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we are definitely here for you and really excited to continue to collaborate. I know for myself, I'm from the area, and really like supporting schools and supporting our youth to build healthy educational communities is a passion point for me. So we are always here to be supports to you and your school's community. Thank you so much for the kind words.
Thanks.
Okay, so we have a question from Lisa. That's, how do you respectfully address an adult that may choose their pronoun to be they, them? So there is no real gender neutral form of like Ms., Mr., mix. So yeah, it is mix, but a lot of people aren't familiar with that or aren't comfortable with that. So you can use mix. You also want to ask them what they want to use. So for a lot of people, they might not want mix because it doesn't quite land the way. I'm so sorry if you can hear my dog. He's like having a dream right now. So they might not want mix. And if that's the case, then you just want to ask people how they want to be referred to, because the chances that they already have another term that they might prefer to use. So, I mean, it's basically my recommendation was, even if they do decide that they want to use mix, you want to ask them how they want to be referred to, just so that we're reflecting the best language. The same way as you might say, would you prefer if I call you by your first name, or do you want to be called Ms. Babiars? I am going to always tell you to call me Amy. I don't want to be called Ms. Babiars, but it's a lot of people will say, like, how would you like me to refer to you? It's the same kind of question. And it also shows that you respect, that you understand that they use they, them pronouns, and you want to make sure you're using the correct terminology.
Especially in school settings, another thing that is very, very commonly used is teacher, or whatever their role is, and their last name, instead of a like initial instead of a Mr., Miss, Mrs. So like Teacher Smith or Coach Babiars, things like that are an option as well. But yeah, definitely it's up to the individual and what they feel most comfortable with. Like Amy nailed it. I will always be Mr. Mitch because Mr. Lee is my dad, and that's just weird.
Yeah, and Miss Babiars just makes me feel like I've misstepped in class. So we just want to make sure, yeah, that we just say, great, what would you like me to call you? Mm-hmm. That was a really great question, though. Thank you. Are there any other questions? I also would like to put in a plug really quickly while we have you. We are wrapping up Pride Month. We have one more event happening tomorrow night. We're doing a panel based off of a documentary called Changing the Game on Hulu. It's about transgender athletes and current legislation that's going on. So that's happening at 7 o'clock. We also have a raffle going on until the end of tomorrow night. I'll put that in the chat. We've got like 7 tattoo gift cards. We've got a couple of overnight stays at a bed and breakfast or a hotel. We've got a lot of like local goods that have been donated. So I'm gonna put that in the chat as well. So you can feel free to check that out. Pride is our biggest fundraiser of the year. We are a nonprofit run by grants. And so So this is a huge way of bringing in funds and continuing to be able to provide Safe Zone for free, providing all of our group training or our group peer support groups for free. So feel free to go check that out if you're so inclined, and you will find out the winners on Thursday. So here it is.
And I just dropped the link for tomorrow as well. I'm sitting on the panel and I'm really excited to talk about the recent updates to Title IX. So if you're free, it will be recorded, I believe, as well. So we can certainly send that out after the fact.
Is there a way that you can put in for the raffles without attending tomorrow?
Yeah, the raffle is completely separate from attendance. It's a month. It was a month-long website. So if you just go to that website, you can participate any way you want to.
Perfect. Thank you.
Amy and Mitch, this is Ashley with the CAC. I just wanted to thank you and just let you know if there's any way that we can continue to support or do anything to help in any way, let us know. But thank you so much for offering to do this training for us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Of course, we were really excited.
We love this training. We would do it all. Last year, I got us into a little bit of a snafu because before COVID hit, I had accidentally signed us up to do 17 trainings in 1 month. So we feel very passionately about this. It was a little bit of a relief that we didn't have to do all 17 in a month, though.
And we're very excited to continue to partner with the CAC specifically. That's something our agency does as a whole, and certainly this is such important context to have. So we're happy to be of help to you as well. Anytime you need us, we're here.
Awesome. Thank you. And I will say that I went up and the prizes are amazing. I will say, I saw it the other day. So Sarah had shared it.
I always have to make a plug for the cookies because that's my wife's business. She's a gluten-free baker and she is phenomenally talented. So definitely got to promote her. All right, are there any other questions? And then certainly Amy did drop our contact info. So if you want to reach out to us individually as well.
Sarah, we can't hear you. Your connection is really bad.